join and
Hey, everybody.
Todd Connor.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the vault.
Living the dream.
Eric, do you want to launch? You want me to?
Go ahead. Either way.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll jump in. Guys, everyone, it's great to see you all. It's there's a lot going on. I'm trying to think even where to begin. Jameson, who many of you have not met, but have probably corresponded with over email, was set to give us a Slack presentation and some of the marketing and digital tools that are available to all of you. Unfortunately, he's got a family matter that he's got to take care of. So he's actually now on a flight back to Wisconsin. So the plan, and I think I said this in the email, was that we'll talk about Slack branding and marketing tools and things that we have for you all. We're probably going to have to punt that, just given the fact that Jameson's dealing with a family issue, and we told him no worries. Obviously, family is the most important thing, so we can address that later. I'll give the highlights though of what he would have shared, and Eric, you can feel free to correct me. In Slack, he has created, we're not sure if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but there are 50 state Slack channels. And then there is the kind of the overall Slack communication channel. So Slack is the platform that we've chosen to engage with each other. I know that I am very inconsistent with it. I'm actually trying to become better about that and be more consistent in using Slack. But if you're wondering, how do I engage with the team? Our official answer is Slack. Definitely encourage you to share thought leadership. Put things in the overall channel that you think will have value for the national network. Put things in your state channel that are specific to like things that you're doing within the state. It's pretty simple. The key though is like sometimes in Slack, you can forget that you're in the state channel when you actually mean to be in the national channel, or you can be in the national channel and forget, when you actually mean to be in the state channel. So just know that that is a thing. But encourage you to join Slack, encourage you to check in once in a while, turn on the notifications if it's helpful so that you get the alerts. And then other things that are in your Slack channel, every state has state branding for VPI. So Jameson actually made little logos that are state specific for we call your task force, which include an outline of the state that you're in. So you have those logo assets in different formats for you to use. So if you're putting together a local event, you want to make a flyer, just either find it in the Slack channel where it's been shared as a file, or just email Jameson. That's my go-to. You can just email him as well and ask for help, or email someone else who's in your state task force and ask them for those things. Here's a pop quiz. Who noticed the mistake in the last national newsletter that went out on Friday? Anybody catch it? It's related to state logos. James, did you catch this in Virginia? So we had a spotlight and a quote from you, James, I believe, or James Scholl, or the upcoming event. But the logo, wait for it, was the actual West Virginia logo. So I can't believe no one else caught that. Dan Biga caught it and said, isn't James in Virginia, not West Virginia? And which, of course, in the Midwest, you're like, it's all the same. But it's really not all the same. So we did make that mistake, but it proves that we do have state-based branding because we did in fact show the West Virginia logo. So apologies for that, James, and to all the good people of I don't know if it's an apology. West Virginia is a great state, but anyway, so those are the things that he was going to share. He also has given you signature stamps that are branded that you can put into your email if you want to. So like if you actually go into Gmail, you can actually have multiple signature stamps that you can choose to put and attach into your email if you want to, but you have those as well. So the summary on branding is you have state-based logos and assets that you can use. If you can't find them, they're in Slack. If you can't find them in Slack, email Jameson and we'll get them to you. You have email signature, that you can use. And how we title everyone, because this is sort of a conversation, and I'm a little bit pedantic about these things because I've built a volunteer-led chapter-based organization. So it gets very confusing very quick. We're actually trying to do it right out of the gate. But the way that we're doing this is we're not giving everyone new email addresses because it's annoying and it's complicated for lots of reasons to do that. So we want you to use whatever email addresses you currently use, but we do encourage you to use the VPI branding. And then how we're titling ourselves, we had some conversation about this, about are we state chapters or how are we referring to ourselves? Our answer in this moment, it could always change, is we're referring to the states as task forces, and you all are leaders within the task force. So if someone says, what are you doing? You can say, I'm a volunteer with Veterans for Political Innovation, or you can say, I'm one of the leaders of the West Virginia VPI task force. So that's the vernacular. Task force. The reason we like task force better than chapters is that it implies we're trying to like get something done. You know, task forces don't live forever. Nor do I think we want to sort of keep this thing going forever. I mean, we'll all be friends, of course, but we want to get things done in states. So we like the task force orientation of action oriented. So that's a little bit of housekeeping on branding. I'm going to pause before we move off of that topic, just to see if, because I got deep into it. Eric, do you want to add anything to that on the branding side, which Jameson was going to cover?
On the branding side, no. And we will do a tutorial with Jameson on Slack for next month, and that should be helpful for all of us. There is no perfect organizing tool. Some people love email, some people hate it, some people love texting, some people hate it. So I think Slack, you know, for those of us who use it, just try to check in if you can once or twice a month at a minimum, just to see what's going on. Or people share some really good resources from their states. Some folks are more active than others, that's okay. But yeah, so we'll just try to keep building momentum wherever it's most helpful.
That's great. And then I'm going to do a plug here while we have a captive audience, and then I'll actually get into introductions and more fun stuff. But if you get a chance, go to the Veterans for Political Innovation website. You can get there by typing veteransforpoliticalinnovation.org or v-pi.org. And when you go to the drop-down menu, there's really great stuff, and we get compliments on our website all the time from other reform organizations, and mostly people are just impressed by all of you, to be honest, that there's like really talented people, respectable people engaged in this work. But if you go to the drop-down website, the drop-down menu on the right, you know, there's a bunch of things here. I'm just going to tell you what they are so that you have it for awareness. Our mission and our values are the first thing, because we really believe that stuff, and that's how we win. We have a whole explainer on Final Five voting. We have a news feed, which is really like our monthly newsletters that go out, kind of repurposed into blog posts. There's other things in there. I do a whole interview series. You might have seen my interview with David McCormick, who ran for the US Senate. I did an interview with Scott Kendall, who ran the Alaska campaign. I've done interviews with Catherine Gale, who wrote The Politics Industry. So I've interviewed about 10, 15 thought leaders from around the country. I continue to do, you know, an interview every couple of weeks. So those interviews are all there. Anything you want to submit, we can absolutely turn into a blog post and put it on our national website. Like, that's an invitation. Some of you have given us content. I know that the ride for RCV is coming up. James, you've provided some things. Others of you have provided things. Henry, you've provided op-eds. We'll take that stuff and we'll put it on our website. And we love that. So like, please send us those things, or just put it in Slack and tag Jameson, and then we'll get it, you know, posted nationally. So that's news. Leadership is about us and our board. And we have at least one board member joining the call, who I will call on in a second, Megan. Thank you for joining. So leadership, that's sort of like at the national level. We get into then upcoming events. We have 2 upcoming events: Wisconsin Happy Hour at the Leinie Lodge, sponsored by Dick Leinenkugel, which is going to be awesome. And then we also Dick's a Marine Corps veteran, he's become a reform advocate. He was going to run for U.S. Senate. He was the Department of Commerce Secretary for the state of Wisconsin, obviously a nationally known name in the beer category. So that's an event. And then we also have an upcoming happy hour in Alaska. And then there might be other, I think the Ride for RCB is also posted there. So if you have events, and again, you want these things on the website, give them to us. We'll put them on the website. We like having a lot of activities coming up. And then you get into state leaders. Okay, so right now, if you just click on state leaders, Jameson is actually going to turn this into a digital map of the United States. So you can float over the state and then click and see who's there. Right now, it's just a list of every state, including the states that you all represent. If you go to a state, like I'll go to just, I'll go to Virginia just because we're picking on Virginia today. You'll see your headshots there. And you'll see your title as state volunteer. We're probably going to evolve that to just say, we might keep it state volunteer, or we might call it task force leader. But either way, but you're there, we have your LinkedIn, and then we have your email address if you've given us that. And then below that, we have testimonials. So if your name is on our website, but you don't see a testimonial, it's because we haven't gotten one from you. We would love to have everyone give us a testimonial, just in your own words. Why are you doing this? And it's really great because, like, you can see Will Hubbard put something pretty different from Carlos, which is pretty different from, what Angie offered. So, like, we like that diversity of perspective. It's a helpful thing for us. It gives us robust networks. And what I've observed with states is, like, there's kind of this flywheel effect where once you get over the hump of like 3 people or 5 people, you can kind of then get to 10, 20. And, we don't need thousands to win. We need like 10 or 20 in every state. I mean, that to me is really like super meaningful, very impactful. We've got 40 states represented. We want to get to all 50. 2 of the states that are the most important for the national movement are Alaska and Nevada, and we're a little light in those places. So please, 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 if you know anyone in Alaska or anyone in Nevada who could get engaged with us, please just connect them to Eric or myself. We'd love that. That's super helpful. So that's the last thing on the website. And then we've got, just get involved, ways to get involved. And then FAQs that are there. So we keep this thing up to date. There's obviously the ability to donate. Last thing I'm going to say, just because we're ripping through all this stuff, we asked Jameson, and this is a service really hopefully for you all, to create abbreviated links to resources that you might find super helpful. So if you go to veteransforpoliticalinnovation.org/volunteer, I just put this in the chat, right? That's how you just give someone that link. Hey, you want to get involved? Here you go, /volunteer. If you want to see the overview of our organization, it's /overview, which is kind of our internal organizational deck. This is like who VPI is. If you want the volunteer deck, I'm hoping this works. It's /educate. That's a public facing deck. We're actually rebuilding it in some ways, but that's for you to give presentations to civic organizations or people in your community. So it's all about like, what is election reform? What's going on? So we keep all these on Canva so that we can make real-time updates and edits without having to email out a whole bunch of new PowerPoints. Eric, are there other hyperlinks that we've got kind of like at the ready? I know /overview, /educate.
Yeah, Educate is a work in progress to link that to. We do have an existing volunteer brief and we're updating that right now. But the overview deck is a very good resource as well.
Yeah. So /overview. So I try to travel to meetings and I don't need to have PowerPoints. I can just, as long as someone's got a laptop, I can go /overview, pull up our deck, and then just talk them through kind of who we are, what we're doing. So we'll continue to build the library. If you feel like, hey, there's something I need, I'm about to go give a presentation to this group, and you want to walk through it with us as a test, like that's what we're here for. So please just reach out to me. You guys are awesome. I'm going to stop talking. Let's go to some introduction. So if this is your first time on the call, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and where you're calling in from. And actually, Megan, can I pick on you to go first? I don't know if this is your first time on the call, but would you mind introducing yourself to everyone?
Sure. Hi. I think I was on one a while ago now when Dan was leading it, I believe, but it's been a while. So my name is Megan Everett. Nice to see all of you. I am based in Chicago and I am a board member. I'm a Navy veteran and served with Todd actually long time ago now. And yeah, just happy to be here and see all the different state leadership and how things are growing quickly, which is awesome. So thank you all for volunteering and being part of VPI in this really important work.
Thanks, Megan. And Megan's a program officer with the McCormick Foundation, overseeing their veteran grant making portfolio. They're one of the leading national kind of funders, if you will, for veterans initiatives. So Megan's got a phenomenal perspective on this work, and she's just an awesome human. And we're so good to see you, Megan. So thanks. I'm going to open up for others who, for whom this might be. And Eric, feel free to cold call folks because you know who's here. But if this is your first time here, we'd love to hear from you.
And
Okay, hello,
oh.
Can you guys see me?
yes,
So my name's Andrew. I am in Virginia right now. I'm a UVA student studying public policy. I got involved with VPI through a friend of a friend, some interesting connections, and I'm just really glad to be here. I wasn't sure that I was going to end up here in Charlottesville, Virginia, and now I'm here. And so I want to make the most out of my time with what I'm doing. And I think this is the best investment because political innovation and election form not only is policy what I'm studying, but it's what I'm very, very passionate about. And it's what I want to be the rest of my life. So I'm glad to be here with everybody.
good to see you, Andrew. Thanks for being here. Let's go to Albie in Michigan. Oh yeah, there you go.
Unmuted. Yes, after 2 years, I finally know how to use Zoom. Hi, everyone. My name's Albie. I use they, them pronouns. I am a U.S. Navy veteran from Michigan. I have organized with a few of you guys before, like Michael Ambrovich and Colleen, and I were actually in DC last week. So go us. I have been an organizer for the Democrats since 2008 up until 2020, when I decided to run for Congress. COVID happened and I watched my party spend $500,000 to trash the name of a good Republican, Peter Meyer, who I endorsed not once but twice over my Democratic opponent. And truthfully, something needs to change, because just because you got a lot of money doesn't mean you're a great candidate. So yeah.
Thanks, Albie. And I encourage you, check out Albie's testimonial on the Michigan State page. It's really inspiring. And we're grateful to have you on the team. It looks like Ian has his hand raised. Ian, if I remember correctly, in Connecticut with Henry, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually been to a couple of these meetings, but never been able to stay long enough to introduce myself. Yeah, I'm in Connecticut. I started getting into a lot of political activism on social media right now, including TikTok. So I've been. My wife actually introduced me
Veterans
to
for Political Innovation.
And my wife actually introduced me to Veterans for Political Innovation, and I've liked a lot of what the plan has to offer, what the program looks to do. I also was able to assist already, so on the oh god, I can't remember which speaker, but one of your speakers that we sponsored.
Maybe Representative Peltola, maybe?
No, the bigger name.
Blumenthal?
That's all right.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, he wasn't Connecticut. We were co-sponsoring with another organization, and I helped moderate and moderate a kind of group video chat.
Nice. Awesome. Well, it's great to have you here, Ian, again, and thanks for being in the fight and doing good work with Henry there in Connecticut. It looks like Major Stefan Katz has his hand up, and real quick, there's many exciting things to celebrate between these calls. We have 7 new state leaders, and Stefan is our very first state leader who is Space Force. So something new to celebrate. And Stefan has been involved in reforms in New Hampshire. He lives in DC now. He's been stationed in Alaska. I got to meet him for the first time last week. So Stefan, yeah, if you want to introduce yourself and maybe share that resource that you shared with me, which was really great.
Yeah, definitely. It's thanks for the warm welcome, Eric, and everyone, and for the 3 people who spoke before me. Nice to meet you. I'm loving the energy of this organization, even though I've only been part of it for a week now. As Eric said, I'm Space Force. Been in it for about a year now. Prior Air Force though, and man, what a lot to figure out there. But I can tell that this organization, veterans from across the services, this is exactly where I need to be. I think you guys bring a lot of great perspective and ideas and energy that I think other organizations should emulate. On your question of why am I here, I would sum it up to let's just say that every problem that we care about that is proving to be hard to solve in Congress or otherwise, the political dysfunction that we are seeing and the increasing polarization of over past several decades, I think that is the problem that prevents the solving of all other problems. And if we do not tackle that, then it doesn't matter what else you're trying to work towards, you won't be successful. So we have to deal with these foundational issues and questions first. And once we do, man, it's going to be a floodgate like nothing we've seen before, and it'll be awesome. We'll get there within our lifetime for sure. Eric, on your point about, I guess, that resource that I shared with you, my understanding or my introduction with ranked choice voting and similar reforms is only 18 months old. I consider myself a relative newbie, and I had to think about the different ways, or I had to research and think about the different ways ranked choice voting and final 5 voting and instant runoff. What are all the distinctions? So I mapped it out into a couple different, I guess, bins that help me as a tool in talking to friends and family and otherwise to better articulate the distinctions and benefits between, well, if you do it at the local level, here's some of the things to consider. If you do it at the presidential level, here are some things to consider. So I shared that with Eric. I don't know, we'll see where it goes. It's still napkin math, but if you have any questions in the near term, I'm happy to discuss.
Yeah, it's a great resource that you probably won't be able to see it well on but I have it printed off here, and Stefan's been working on some bills in New Hampshire in support of ranked choice voting and doing some good work. So grateful to have you on the team. I see some other first timers on here, and I'm borderline introvert extrovert. I don't, so I want to be sensitive. If people are intentionally not introducing themselves, that's okay. But yeah, Colleen, I was hoping you would introduce yourself in upstate New York and a 5-star advocate with IAVA, also met for the first time last week.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Can you all hear me?
Mhm.
Yes, okay. I'm from, as Eric stated, I live in Troy, New York, the home of Uncle Sam, which is just down the road from Albany. I came to this group through Roger Pinto and Michael Matos, who I met at IAVA this year on Capitol Hill. I've been in the background of the reform movement for military justice policy since about 2011, when the Invisible War film hit the streets. And so throughout the experience, I got involved for very personal reasons, and over the years, I have a public affairs background, so I'm a trustee, if you will, of the movement. I've been consulting as a grassroots veteran advocate. I've been consulting stakeholders on Capitol Hill this entire time. And it's just been a very eye-opening experience in and of itself. And then with what has been happening in our nation's politics and the division, the economics over the last 50 years, I think that was integral in bringing this about, coupled with the fact that I'm the daughter of a World War II veteran, I'm the greatest generation, and my mother worked in a factory. I just became very concerned, about solutions. I didn't see many solutions for the harm that I see getting done in the political arena on both sides. So, anything I can do to empower everyday Americans. I feel like they're kind of stuck in a kind of like a learned helplessness phase where folks don't get involved in their communities and politics. And I don't necessarily think it's their fault, but we need someone to stand up and solve this. And I think veterans are the perfect community to get involved. So I really appreciate being here with you and getting to participate in something that I think is going to be game changing for this country, for men, women, and non-binary folks alike from all walks. I'm just very excited about this, and I thank you for allowing me to be here with you.
Thank you,
Yeah, thanks for-
Colleen.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. Looks like Dennis has his hand up. Dennis, you want to introduce yourself? You're on mute, right? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
We're having,
Southeastern Ohio.
He's muted too.
okay. Dennis.
Army vet.
We'll come back to
2010, I started working with veterans. I was a
Hey,
veteran
Dennis.
service officer for a while. 6 years I worked for. 6 years I worked for a veterans nonprofit. There's something wrong.
Yeah, you're coming in broken. We're gonna hold on you until you get better reception, and then we'll welcome you back in.
It's probably because of the video.
That's all right. We'll just I'm
Where I
gonna
live is a dead pool, dead area.
okay, no worries, no
Yeah.
worries. We got the highlights. And I'm just because I want to be punchy on time. Thank you and welcome. I want to say, Kai, I'm going to go to you for a quick introduction. Then I want to get into like a little discussion here as well.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, I got into this because my neighbor James introduced me to the idea, and it seems like a big mess that needs cleaning up. And this seems like a good idea that can appeal to a lot of regular people to fix it. Done.
That's the hope. That's the hope. If we are all regular people. And I just want to affirm a couple of things, and then I'm going to ask everyone to go to the chat with a question I've got for you all, but 2 questions. But we are a group of cross-partisan. I actually like to say post-partisan. Many of us have done things as Republicans or as Democrats and as registered independents or as unaffiliated or as minor party candidates, libertarians and other. But we all are sort of waking up to the reality that we're never going to get beyond a dysfunctional system with the rules constructed in the ways in which they are. And we get daily reminders of how unable our political system is to sort of do the things it needs to be doing in this current environment. And we've taken a root cause analysis. This is head stuff, guys, before it's hard stuff. to say there's an answer, but you got to get into incentive changing reforms. And that's what we're here to do. We really believe that Final Five voting is a powerful solution, but we also recognize that every state's different, every community is different, and there are smart people that have honest disagreements about what the right political strategy is to achieving election reform in different places. There are smart political people that think you gotta focus on open primaries or focus on ranked choice voting or just go for Final Five voting through a ballot initiative. States are different. About half the states in this country do ballot initiatives. The other state half, you have to kind of move it through the state legislature, and that's a very different political path. So there's honest disagreement about the political path. We don't want to get too tied up in that. We do want to keep the North Star as Final Five voting. And I think if you look at Alaska, it's just all the evidence you need that these reforms have an immediate and powerful effect on the governing environment. We're seeing that in Alaska because they are the one state that has Final Four voting. But we recognize that there are other solutions that can move us closer. There's a lot of funders that are interested in proportional representation or approval voting or other versions of this. Eric is much smarter on these issues than I am. I don't think our job is to be scholars on these issues. I do think, and this is what the reform community will say, the critical role that Veterans for Political Innovation is playing is to help stand up and talk in common sense terms about two guiding values that we think ought to exist in our politics and don't today, which is we ought to always have choices and everybody ought to always be able to vote. And if you're a registered independent in this country, that is often not true. You can't vote. And the vast majority of elections that we hold in this country, especially at the federal level, they are not competitive. They are gerrymandered, they are preordained. It's either the Republican or the Democrat who's going to win. They've been gamed. The Democratic Party games Republican primaries, the Republican Party games Democratic primaries. So all that's happening. So while we support Final Five voting, there's a little bit of a trap in this work. And those of you that have been doing this, which is if you go to elected officials and start talking technical terms, they will say to you, and this is the biggest takedown of our movement, this sounds complicated. I don't think people are ready for it, which is like the ultimate sort of non-answer to, well, how are you going to solve this crisis? And so we really lead with the values of every election ought to be competitive and independents ought to have access to every election that is funded by taxpayer dollars. And the parties, both parties are really guilty of not having a good and honest answer to how to make that a reality in this country, because they both stand to lose in elections in which more independents participate, more choices are present, and more voters get to engage. So here's my question for you all. If you go to the chat, and I mean this honestly, and then I'll kind of cold call some folks, but as we do this work, and maybe this is your first time on the call, and welcome, but what's working for you and what is not? Where are you stuck? And if there's something, and maybe that's like something that we can help fix, or maybe it's something that you're seeing community. But what's working on the ground or from where you sit, and where are you stuck or needing something? I'd love to get some thoughts on this. If you can, go to the chat. Henry, since you went first, I'm going to call on you to maybe share just quickly on your comments. What's working and where are we stuck?
So I think there's a strong desire at the municipal level to I guess execute these elections with these reforms in place. So whether it's open primaries or ranked choice voting, but where we get stuck is whenever there's any success at the municipal or local level that could translate to meaningful legislation, we get pushback. Obviously, if the duopoly is relinquishing control, it's a problem. And I think we're seeing, lots of Connecticut's a blue state, so we see lots of support to things like no excuse absentee voting or early voting because it benefits Democrats. But whenever anything disrupts the control the duopoly has on state politics, we get answers like, yeah, we don't have the capacity to deal with this, during this session, which has been the answer for 5 years. So that's where we're sort of stuck. So I think what we would do to overcome that is get 50% of the 169 towns in Connecticut to support this initiative, which can't be ignored in the legislature. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Interesting. So building up from a municipal level, there's theories of the case about how you make this stuff work. And in some instances it's and this is what the case is in Nevada, and Doug can speak to this, but you bring a bunch of money and you blanket the airwaves and you just go direct to voter and you expect both parties to come out opposed, which they did. But you go direct to voter and have a ballot initiative. I mean, it's sort of like the blunt instrument of reform, and you hope that enough grassroots activity can happen that it sticks long enough for it to stay. There's other theories of you go to a state and you just pay all the lobbyists to move a bill through the legislature in a supermajority Republican or Democratic state, because they know at the end of the day, if it's supermajority Republican, it's still going to be Republican. If it's supermajority Democrat, it's still going to be Democrat. Just pay the lobbyists and get the thing moving, or do it through grassroots activism. And there's other theories of the case. Like there's a theory of the case in Illinois, for example, which is, and there's a lobbyist, good government lobbyist here who's trying to get this passed. And his whole strategy is focus on doing this at the municipal level, and do it for the disability community, so that you can create a proof point of concept that this in fact can be done, to neutralize municipal clerks saying they can't do it, which is the opposition that will come if this gets pushed down. So we could wax poetic all day long. Henry, what would you add?
Well, so I just wanted to share sort of a failure we had in Connecticut. In Connecticut, we did sort of what you're describing, right? We had high-powered lobbyists that we hired. We had a 501c4. We had a whole bunch of old white guys who have been on the Capitol for 30 years. We had a whole bunch of, people who were, had political capital to expend on this. And, we thought, I think incorrectly, that that's where we needed to be. We're in the right rooms, talking to the right people. And objectively, we're thinking this is where we need to be. And then nothing happens. And looking back, reflecting on that, after we failed to get something out of our legislature, which looked like it had really strong legs, and it looked like it had great support, bipartisan support. We had 2 senators support our legislation. We had, probably 50 members of our House. It went nowhere quietly and passively because it was just like, we don't have the bandwidth for this year. And that's the exact thing that's been happening for 5 years. We fell into the same trap because we put it in the hands of these political elites. We put it in the hands of these lobbyists and these folks that have been on the Capitol for 30 years. And that was the mistake. Because like I think Kai or someone else said, this solves all the problems, but it also changes the system. So it's not like gun reform. It's not like abortion. It's not like, education choice. It's not like any of this stuff, because it changes the system fundamentally. So you're going to get hard pushback when we have any success. And I think we made the mistake that everyone makes. It's get in the right rooms and advocate and lobby and do what you're supposed to do, like you're passing a bill for gun reform, but we're not. We're changing the whole system. We got to do it, I think, grassroots. And that's true in Connecticut. Maybe that's not true everywhere in the country, but in Connecticut, we got to do it grassroots. We got to get municipalities to support this and be our advocates, or else the legislature is going to ignore it year after year.
Yeah, thank you. Bill, I see your hand up, and Mike.
Yeah, I agree that a lot of incumbents see the whole concept of changing the system to be anti-incumbent. And for that reason, I've tried to approach people who were no longer in the system. Either they retired politically, or I'm now looking at local elections where you've got promising candidates, but they get no traction because they don't have the name identification, they don't have the money, and they don't necessarily have anything but good policy and energy. And so I'd like to throw out to the group to get your reaction of going to, let's say, the most promising yet losing candidate on a particular office. In my case, we've got a mayor here in San Antonio who he's going to win re-election, and frankly, he's a good one. And the guy that's running against, one of the people that's running against him, is a very promising individual, and he definitely has skin in the game. But the question is, after he loses, is he going to be motivated for the next go around? And I think I could reason with someone like that to say, you know, you didn't have the name recognition, you didn't have all the money you wanted, but you wanted to be there because of your policies and what you believe in. You should consider ranked choice voting as a strategy for your next time around. And you've got arguably, 2 to 3 years to get those forces in place to support this kind of newcomer opportunity. How do people, has anybody tried that? Have you gotten results or lack of results?
That's great. Thanks, Bill, for that perspective. And I think, it's interesting. There are some incumbents who are intrinsically going to be opposed, and it's safe to say that the establishment forces will be opposed. But there are also a lot of folks who, and I've talked to elected officials, who don't think it's fun anymore, who really just have come to the point of view that this governing environment is toxic to participate in. People that actually, I think, want to sort of be productive and be workhorses, not show horses, find themselves exhausted by this. And some of those folks have been quiet advocates for the reforms that we're talking to. I'm in Indiana, and we are approaching Mitch Daniels, who looked at running is a Republican in Indiana and ultimately decided he could not win a Republican primary, even though he was incredibly popular and sort of the gold standard of what a Republican and, Republican governor was in the 2000s. And I think it comes down to this issue. So to your point, Bill, it's like, how do we take people that have either run for office and lost or not run for office or have retired, who can then become advocates to say, look, this could be a better political system, and lean on them for leadership and advocacy. And so someone like Mitch Daniels is actually taking a look at it and saying, yeah, that's interesting. Mike, you're in the car, but you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just pulled over so I don't crash here. So
please don't.
Number one, be optimistic. And number two, know that we are on the right mission and we have the right people. I have so much gratitude for my other veteran leaders here in Virginia, James, Nick, and many others here. And also understand your local politics, understand you got to get into the weeds of what is ranked choice voting, the laws, and everything like that. And here in Virginia, we worked hard to get the local option bill passed in the Virginia House and Senate, right? And when you get it, Virginia, Catherine Gale talks about this really well, is it's easier to change laws on people that aren't you, right? So getting a state senator or state delegate to make a law for the local governments, it's not affecting them, right? So that is a key there. And then once that was passed in 2020 for the local option, we now have 133 opportunities for success, right? So we are just knocking them out one by one here in Virginia, because if you have one setback, you just go to the next county. You got another setback, you go to the next city, right? So 133 opportunities for success greatly expands your option. We're going to have the Democratic primary in Arlington using ranked choice voting in June. And there's going to be press releases and media and all this kind of stuff. And it's just going to snowball throughout Virginia after that.
I love that. Thanks, Mike. I want to underscore just the point about optimism too. I think you can get deflated and defeated doing this work. You can, the obstacles are many, but part of what I think a lot of people find inspiration from all of you is just our willingness to show up and say, no, this is America. We can do hard things. There's a problem. We're here to solve it. And there's actually a way to solve it that, if you get it done, it changes the incentives. Look at Alaska, so like that simple clarity of not only like America can get this right, and that there is a specific way to change the outcomes in enduring ways, I think people find deeply inspiring. And that's why I found this inspiring, because I thought that there's actually a solution. So please continue to lean on that, be solutions oriented. We always want to be the people, if we can, when we show up and join coalition efforts where, here's what I've observed in the last year and a half, sometimes those things can become technical kind of tit for tat kind of warring arguments. And it's like, we're just a small bubble, and that's not helpful, right? There are honest disagreements. We should have those and talk about the technical implications of these reforms and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, to come out of those spaces and be confident, optimistic, action-oriented, like forward-moving, with this sense of urgency, that cultural contribution that we can make to the reform ecosystem is just super powerful. So I just encourage you to I keep it simple, I keep it optimistic, I keep it forward moving. I'm like, great, got it. It's complicated, it's hard. What's the plan? What are we going to do here? Let's just move forward. So I think that's a huge thing I want to underscore. And the other thing is, and Eric quotes this all the time, is just like the truth of the matter. We actually just have intellectual honesty, and might makes right. And so if better things come along, then we'll look at it. But, might makes right. And this is like an honest set of solutions that can actually work. All right, Doug Goodman, over to you.
Just adding on to optimism, patience. This is not going to happen overnight. In Nevada, we've got the ballot initiative. I first started talking ranked choice voting in Nevada 10 years ago. Minnesota, which started ranked choice voting locally over 10 years ago. They are a legislative state. They do not have the initiative. They just had a major success in their state legislature. It looks like they're going to be the next state to go statewide legislatively. So again, it's patience. This doesn't happen overnight, but all of a sudden it does.
I appreciate that, Doug, because we're an impatient group. I know I am. So that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a perspective on just what's going on around the country? And then I want to allow time, in particular, if there's anything that you need to hear from me and Eric that you haven't heard yet, go ahead and put it in the chat. We want to make sure we cover that. And then, but Eric, any perspective you want to offer on what's going on?
Well, just real quick, I'll highlight, the 5 key states that we are most focused on, either because of national partners, national funding. Alaska, if you know anyone in Alaska, please introduce me to them. It's a little harder in states with low population to build momentum. So we'd love introductions. Alaska, Nebraska, I see Rob is on here. Rob is holding down the state of Nebraska by himself. So we're looking to clone him, multiply him by 10 or 15 if we can. Wisconsin is also an important state, legislative state. And then Missouri, and what am I missing here, Todd? Was that 5? I got sidetracked.
Alaska, Missouri, Nevada.
Doug just spoke. How could I not say Nevada? Yeah, so Nevada, of course, is extremely important to win there again. And building on Doug's point, whether you're in a ballot state or a legislative state, legislation is always an option. Advocacy, even just one-on-one conversations with anyone in your state legislature who's a veteran, especially, get them on the record. Do you support these solutions? Yes or no? If they say no, then what is your solution to fix toxic polarization? And just having those conversations, right? Legislation is always an option, whether, and Mike, your point is great as well. state reps are not going to change their own rules, but they might do it for local elections or they might do it for national elections. So start wherever you can get the win. Todd, you got a thought there?
Well, part of starting with where you can get the win, it's such a great point, is when people get a taste of this somewhere on their ballot, they want it everywhere on their ballot. It's like the first time you go to, a grocery store that, has, I don't know what your favorite grocery store is, but the first time you see a bunch of options and then you realize, oh, it's possible to have a lot of options, you then don't understand why you can't have it in other places. So I do think that like movements, this is movement building that we're doing. It starts slow, it seems inevitable, and then it's fast or it seems impossible. Then it's fast and inevitable. So yeah, I find that to be productive, Eric.
So, and then a couple other quick highlights. I don't know if anyone from Colorado wants to talk about, there's a pro ranked choice voting bill that's hopefully going to be introduced this week for military and overseas voters to be able to use a ranked choice ballot. Does anyone from Colorado want to say a few words about that?
Happy to chime in. This is Lisa Smith. So on the 27th, we're gonna drop a bill for what he had just mentioned, overseas and military ballot voting. That's kind of the way I see a foot in the door towards this. Sometimes it's hard to get a big thing pushed, but if we can get one step in, then it'll be successful. So myself and another VPI member, I think maybe Greg, will be testifying on behalf of that. So that's exciting. And that's all I have for that specific thing.
Yeah, thanks for stepping up there, Lisa. And it's either Greg or Mo. I think Mo is on the call too, are going to testify in support of this bill. That's something that anyone in any state, when the time comes up, this is part of why we're forming this team, is there's going to be more and more opportunities like this in more states. Another thing I want to mention again, we highlighted the events page. If any of you have an event in your state that you want broader attention, just let us know and we'll have Jameson add it as a partner event, as long as it's, obviously in support of the reforms that we're working on. But so Mike Cantwell is organizing this ride for ranked choice voting in Virginia. That's on May 12th. And that's on as a partner event. And then Mike Matos, I see Mike listening in here, in New York City, Coast Guard veteran. He's organizing a great Memorial Day muck march. And we will get this up on the event page, but it's going to be on Sunday, May 28th, starting in Brooklyn. They're going to march across the Brooklyn Bridge. They have a whole day of activations planned. It looks like a ton of fun. So if you're anywhere close to New York City, think about going there Sunday, May 28th. Any other events or things people want to highlight here as we get close to closing out?
Hey, Eric, this thing we have in Boston in a week and a half, we're a small part of the coalition, but would you want pictures or story from that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, Mark, that's an event in Wisconsin. A partner organization called Voters First Wisconsin is organizing a rally, an event with, I think, 5 or 6 partner organizations, including Country First and us. And so, yeah, Mark, anytime you attend these events, please take some photos of yourself in action, and we will share those as far and wide as we possibly can.
Okay.
Yeah, the impact of that, just photos and us being out and about, it is, if we have not just the appearance, but the reality of people in 40 military veterans and military connected in 40 states across the country, popping around, talking to elected officials, talking to other people with a smile on their face, with a plan to fix our politics. Like, you just can't underestimate how deeply impactful that is. I mean, for every one of those, there's probably 5 billionaires willing to fund these efforts, but there are not enough organizations on the ground who can sort of be a national grassroots effort to humanize this work, frame it in ways that make sense to people, and move the issue forward. So your role in this is just incredibly important. Even if you feel like you haven't done a lot yet, just it's incredibly important, and feel free to start small, reach out to the people that you know. That sometimes the most impactful thing you can do is just get another person to come on the next call. You know, it's a war of small numbers for us. All the offers to make introductions to Alaska, thank you. That's super helpful. Eric and I are on flights up there in a few weeks on, you know, just on the idea that like we're gonna show up and meet people because we don't know enough people yet. So those introductions are super helpful. And my final caveat just is, even as we talk about these states that are funded in priority, please don't hear in that where you are doesn't matter, or the efforts that you're leading don't matter. What you're doing in Ohio, South Carolina, Texas, Illinois, Ohio, you know, all over the place, Tennessee. I mean, these efforts are hugely important. So we mostly talk about the places where we need more help, but all the efforts matter and are super important. So yeah, Lisa, I'll see if we can get those billionaires turned on to your efforts. I don't disagree.
Yeah, and Todd talks often about our strength is grass blades, and really we need a full, robust movement, and it's going to require grassroots, grass blades, and grass tops. The grass tops funders, they have their own matrix on how and where they're going to invest their money. And thanks to the success in Alaska, there are more states in play for Final Five voting in 2024 than ever before. There's a limited pot of resources, right? So those are decisions made many times above our pay grade. We're the grass blades, though, that are connected with both and really can engage in a way that you know, we're not going to take to the streets. We're gonna win hearts and minds by being the adults in the room. And then just piggybacking on something Todd said earlier, if any of you lands a presentation, whether it's your local VFW or a library or a civic organization, educational, just let me know. If you want me to listen in on a walkthrough, I'm happy to do that with you and give you some constructive feedback, and we'll get you on your way there. And then please consider bringing 1 or 2 more people to the team, to the fight for next month, and we'll keep growing this 5-10 people a month, but it's a good clip.
If you haven't done one in a bit, it's really just going on LinkedIn even and saying, you don't have to talk politics. You can say, hey, I really appreciate having joined these folks. We're solutions oriented. If you're interested in helping fix our political system, check them out. You know, and just put the volunteer link, just make a quick LinkedIn post if you get a chance, or Facebook if you want. I don't like being on social media. I'm sure many of you don't either, for all the reasons we know, but people are, you know, your friends in your network, they see you as a role model, right? So like people will take to heart the fact that, oh, Kevin's a great guy, you know, this reasonable person, you know, gosh, if Shannon got involved, then there must be some value here. If Albie's involved, then that, you know, that means something. So please do that, and people will be attracted. And if we can just continue to grow, again, you get another person, onesies and twosies, but we're gonna get the team we need. Our goal is to be in all 50 states within the next 6 months, and I think that we can do that. We're going to continue to have an impact. So huge thanks to everyone. We like to end on time, start on time, end on time. Your time is valuable. I'm super grateful for all of you. Feel free to come off mute and make some noise on your way out. But thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you. Onward
Thanks,
we
guys.
go.
Bye.
Thank you, Todd and Eric.
Right next to my file.
Great to see you all.
Good to see
Yeah,
y'all.
Great seeing glad everyone. that
See
I
you,
have
everybody.
gotten
Bye.
involved.
Welcome, Albie.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, Albie, see you later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye all.